A 15-year-old girl by the name of Kim Byers is working at Nissen Pharmacy at the cash register. Her friend, Rob Peast, is also working that day. Because it's cold and people keep opening and closing the door, she asks Rob for his jacket. Of course, he gives it to her. Around this time, she notices a middle-aged man in the store wearing a flannel shirt. Out of curiosity, she asks the pharmacist who he is and finds out that he is a contractor there for remodeling the store. As the night is winding down, Rob comes to Kim and asks for his jacket back. He says he is going outside to talk to the contractor about a job, so she hands it to him and sees Rob exiting the store. Around an hour later, as the store is preparing to close, Rob's mother enters and asks where he is. Kim tells her that he went outside to talk to some contractor, but she hasn't seen him come back. His mother says she didn't see Rob outside either and tells Kim to call her when he gets back so she can come pick him up. Later, when the store closes, Rob's mother calls Kim and asks if her son has come back yet. Kim tells her he is not there. That night was Rob's mother's birthday, something he wouldn't have overlooked. He was missing. Sam Amarante, Gacy's lawyer, is sitting in his office when he suddenly gets a telephone call.
I said, law office? And he said, hi, Sam, this is John Gacy. I said, hi, John, how are you? He said, could you do me a favor? I said, sure, what do you need? Could you find out why I'm being tailed by the Desplaines police? He said, no problem, I'll find out. So the first thing I did was go to the police. Hey, John Gacy's a good guy. What are you guys following him for? And they would say, well, there's a missing kid. We think he has something to do with it. And I'd be like, you're crazy. Hey, missing kid, you obviously have the wrong guy.
The officer who files a missing person report goes back to the drugstore where the boy was last seen and asks who was there that night. He compiles all the names of the people who had been there into a list. Among them is John Wayne Gacy's name, so they start running his name through the system for criminal history and find out he had done time in Iowa for sodomy. That immediately puts him at the top of their suspect list.
In the incident with this Donald Voorhees Jr., he was 15 years old. I think it was in 67, the summer of 67 or August of 67 or September of 67, somewhere in there. Donald Voorhees, I was driving from one store to the other, which was my daily routine. Donald Voorhees was hitchhiking. I picked him up. He was asking me about the Stag film. So me, like an asshole, I took him over to my house and I showed him the film. Of course, I got horny by watching him. And anyhow, to cut the conversation short, what happened is that he ended up blowing me, and I believe I went down on him. I had a wife, I had 2 children, I had business, I had wealth. Why in the fuck did I go out and get myself involved with a kid? He told his dad. Well, his dad turned around and got a hold of the state's attorney, and then I was charged with it.
When Gacy was put for psychiatric evaluation at Iowa City, he was diagnosed with an antisocial personality disorder.
They felt that it would be not a reoccurring thing and that the whole thing was stupid, that it should have never happened. That's why I keep saying, instead of being the perpetrator, I was the victim. I was used.
John Wayne Gacy lived in Norwood Park Township. His house was right about here, and the pharmacy was here. The distance between them, measured in a straight line, is around 8 kilometers. Joseph Kozenjak, the head of investigations of the Des Plaines Police Department, goes out his way from the police station to John Wayne Gacy's house.
Lieutenant Kozenjak, the asshole from Des Plaines Police Department, talked to me about the Peace Boy disappearance. He asked me if I'd come down and give him a witness statement. I told him I didn't have time, that I had just had a death in the family, that I'm waiting for a call from my mother in Arkansas.
One detective was assigned to watch the house, They had seen Gacy arrive in his van. Well, when the van left, they followed the van, thinking that Gacy was in it, when in fact, it was one of his workers that took the van. When they finally caught up to him, they realized it wasn't Gacy. By that time, Gacy was gone.
John Wayne Gacy goes down to the police station around 11 o'clock in the morning. He enters and goes to the reception. They tell him that Mr. Kozenczak wants to talk to him, so he sits and waits. After around 2 hours of waiting, Mr. Kozenczak arrives.
I go over to the little room, introduce myself. I said, do you want to give us permission to go take a look in your house? Since you're telling us you've got nothing to hide. He said, no, I'm not going to give you permission.
The police know something is wrong. The question is, what does he have to hide? They realize they need to act fast to get a search warrant before he has a chance to destroy any evidence. Once they secure the warrant, they search his house, mainly looking for Robert Piest, hoping he's being held captive. They find weird books. They also find sex toys and torture devices, some of which include chains and handcuffs. They search his trash and find a photo receipt from Nissan Pharmacy, a high school ring from Maine West High School, temporary driver's licenses, and many belongings that were clearly not his. There was also a crawl space accessible via a trap door in the front closet. So they go below, but they find only muck there.
Nothing was disturbed down there. No body was laying around, no clothing. You don't have a body, you don't have a crime. All you have is a missing 15-year-old.
Joe Kozenczak puts Gacy on 24-hour surveillance. Ron Robinson and Bob Schultz are assigned to watch him from noon to midnight, and Dave Hatchmeister, together with Mike Albrecht, are from midnight to noon.
The police were supposed to be undercover, but it didn't take him but a day to realize that we were following it. At that stage, then we have to try to change our tactics.
And we decided that it would put a lot more psychological pressure on Gacy if we did an overt type of surveillance. And an overt surveillance is where you knock on the individual's door, introduce yourself, and tell them that you're the police and that you're going to be following them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every place that they go.
He seemed to welcome the investigation.
Constantly, I was under surveillance. I could have ditched him any one of a number of times and gotten away from him. But I was constantly stopping and trying to help him, They were slowing me down. He said, well, goddamn it, you never stop. I said, well, I got things to do. I said, I got a job going in Aurora, Illinois. I've got one in Waukegan, Illinois. I've got 3 in Chicago. And I says, it takes time, and I've got to move around all of them.
He was playing a cat and mouse game with the police department, trying to outfox them, trying to manipulate what they were doing, trying to show that he was in control of this situation.
We're going to stay with you all the time. If he went into a coffee shop for coffee, we went in with John and we sat with him and had coffee. If he went into a bar, we went into the bar with him.
One time he told us that he had heard that Rob Piest was found up in Wisconsin and he was all right.
Gacy's choice for workers was always young men, small in stature, usually light colored hair.
The 2 main guys that we encountered was Mike Rossi and David Cram.
Michael Rossi and David Cram were Gacy's assistants at PDM contractors who worked very closely with him in everything he did. But they were basically they were gophers, and they would help him run the business. They'd help him run his business.
As we're going through the investigation and we talk to people and find out that, yeah, there's a kid by the name of such and such. He worked for Gacy at a time. I haven't seen him in a while.
And then we got people started coming forth saying, I know this guy, he worked there, he's missing too. Gregor Godzik was a Chicago boy. He had worked for Gacy and he turned up missing.
And then we find out that another kid that used to work for Gacy, he is up and disappeared. John Butkovich, one day didn't show up for work. Nobody ever saw him again. The police came by asking questions, nothing. Gacy denied knowing anything about the kid's disappearance. John Zick's car was never recovered when he disappeared. And then during the course of the investigation, when he got the information from Zick's parents about what car he'd been driving, one of the guys, might have been Tovar, said, that's the same kind of car that Mike Rossi's driving. The VIN number was altered, and then Gacy sold it to Rossi for, pennies on the dollar.
That put John in contact or knowing 4 or 5 different people who had come up missing that had never been located. This is highly unusual. I mean, most people don't know any missing person, let alone come in to know 4 or 5.
Why are these people vanishing, never to be found or seen again, bodies never discovered? You're scratching your head and going, what happened to these? They just vanished. Never just turned up. Where did they go?
When does this end? What have we got here? Because truly, we didn't know.
In some ways, I think John began to think that we were his best friends. We weren't giving him a hard time. The only thing we were doing was following him. Many times he invited us in, trying to show what a nice guy he was and how amiable he was with us, and it got us into the house. We had gotten a request from Lieutenant Kozenzak. There were a missing TV and a missing radio from a missing person.
John Zick's mother told us that a little TV that he had in his bedroom was missing from his house. She described it as a Motorola type TV. And we recall having seen a TV similar to that when we went into Gacy's house during the search warrant.
So Bob Schultz decided he had to use the restroom, which would get him into the other part of the house where he could search. My job became then to keep John entertained so he didn't go looking for Bob. Bob looked around, couldn't find the TV, so he's in the bathroom flushing the toilet like a good guy should. But then the heat kicked on. And that made all the difference in the world because Bob was right there by the heating duct and this came up and he got a whiff of that like you wouldn't believe. And right away he thought, a putrid odor? Yes, it was. We've been on the job for too long. We've handled too many dead bodies. If he says that's what it was, you can take it to the bank.
So I'm talking to Cram, and I said to him, did you ever see Gacy completely lose his temper? And he says, yeah. I said, well, what was the circumstance? He says, well, Gacy had me digging into crawl space. And he says, I changed directions because instead of going on a straight line he says, I went on a diagonal. And Gacy came down to check on what I was doing, how I was digging, so on and so forth. And he saw a diagonal instead of a straight line. He completely lost his temper. Swearing, jumping up and down, hollering and screaming, God damn it, I told you. I want you to dig over here, not over here. And that's what got me thinking. Because the whole time we were doing this, we were trying to figure out where all these people went. Where are they? And in my wildest dreams, he said, it can't possibly be. But then you hear the story, and then you go, is it possible that there's somebody down there? So I had my mission was to get Terry Sullivan to give us a second search warrant, which is not usual. 2 search warrants on the same property.
Kim Byers is standing at the cash register in Nissen Pharmacy, handing in a film to be processed. She fills out her envelope and puts it in the pack that is going to be picked up. She tears off the receipt and then puts it in a little trash box that is near the side of the cash register. However, after throwing it away, she stops and stares at it. For an unknown reason, she grabs the receipt and puts it into Rob's jacket pocket.
Thank God Kim Byers had put that little receipt into her pocket, which turns out to be Rob's coat.
That receipt wound up in the trash at John Wayne Gacy's house. And that was our first connection, putting Robert in that house.
The receipt for the film from Kim Byers, plus the smell, that was enough for Terry to say okay and to rope the second warrant.
When I went into that house, Our main goal was to find Robert Piest. There aren't too many places to hide a body in a house like that. So mainly, I wanted to go into the crawl space because that's where you could bury somebody. So I went down in and I crawled to the east and then to the south. I start looking around and there's 3 little puddles in the mud down there. As I shine my light there, there's a whole bunch of little thin red worms. I've never seen anything else like that before or after. And when my light hit these worms, they go, and they sneak back into the muck. And I think, worms, fresh dirt, what are these worms eating?
Myself and a number of other cops were in the family room, the living room, when Dan yelled up that he had found bones.
And they go, is it Piest? I'm looking at this and not understanding what I'm seeing. Piest, been gone just a short while, but this body was very decomposed.
It certainly wasn't Piest. So now we know we got a major situation here. This was an unknown homicide, and that's when we started digging.
And I called my sergeant, and I said to him, Don, I think we got a basement full of kids here.
The police have their hands on a graveyard full of kids, and every day that they dig, they find more and more bodies.
Police today found 6 more bodies under the John Gacy house in Norwood Park Township near Des Plaines, Illinois. The 6 bodies bring the total found under this house and garage to 15, all appearing to have been teenaged boys and young men.
Everybody in the neighborhood is in complete shock.
You see bodies in your sleep, you see him in your sleep. It's just too much.
The media is everywhere, and John Wayne Gacy becomes a media sensation all around the world.
Gacy was on international news.
Sitting there every day, I've enjoyed it. I've been in the limelight. I like being the center of attraction. But I think I earned it too.
How'd you earn it?
Nobody else had the guts to pull off what I pulled off and got away with it. Clowns can get away with anything. Clowns can get away with murder.
The search for more bodies under the home of suspected sex killer John Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy.
John Gacy.
John Gacy. John Wayne Gacy.
If I won the case, I could sit there and laugh for a fucking hour. You stupid son of a bitch. I outsmarted you again.
In the aftermath, authorities discovered a total of 29 bodies in the house and 4 more in the Des Plaines River. One of the bodies recovered from the river was Robert Piest. John Wayne Gacy told police that Robert had approached him looking for work. Gacy invited him to his house, where he assaulted and strangled him. The next day, when the police came to Gacy's door, the body was still in the house because police mistakenly believed that Gacy was in the van and followed it. He was able to drive to the Des Plaines River, where he dumped the body. Robert Piest's remains were eventually found in April 1979, when the warmer waters caused them to surface. John Wayne Gacy was convicted on March 13, 1980, for 33 counts of first-degree murder. He was sent to Menard Correctional Center in Illinois and received the death penalty. He waited 14 years before being executed, and he finally died on May 10, 1994, by lethal injection at Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois.
Hey, I got news for you. I killed 33 times. You're only going to kill me once. Gacy outsmarted him again.